Hey guys, and welcome back. This is ChosenArchitect, and today we're diving back into some more FTB Skies, but we're not on the sky today, we're on the moon, and today we're setting up a Mekanism Fission Reactor, and well, creating all of its byproducts. Hopefully you guys are ready. So today is the day that a lot of you guys have been waiting for, and today we're diving headfirst into a Mekanism Fission Reactor. We've touched on a little bit of Mekanism, getting a little bit of power going, and of course we're going to set up more of these here soon, and I have upgraded this, but I did live stream last Friday, of course is the time of this recording, and sort of prepped up for today's episode because there was a bit of prep involved. So thank you guys for all being there. If you haven't followed me on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/ChosenArchitect, where we all kind of hung out and worked on putting this together. Now, one of the things I decided on was an area to put this. And so in this beam right here, we're going to be going somewhere. And that place is, well, into space. And I was like, what would be a fantastic place to set up this reactor? None other than one of the underground bases on the moon. And this is one of the many areas that you can set up or find underground. And so what I've done is I've closed off the ways, the exits and everything else, to make this feel nice and small. And so I've closed these off. There's actually corridors that lead outside of this. And then I put these really cool anti-block light boxes that lead up into the sky where we could see the sky. Also gives it a little bit of ambient light during the daytime. But yeah, I've worked on already setting up fizzle fuel. I'm going to talk about this here in just a moment because we're actually going to be building more than one of these. We set this up so I could refresh my brain on how this is supposed to be designed. This could probably be compacted even more, but for right now, this is a really simple way of showing this. And I've set this up many times using the wiki for Mekanism. If you search up fizzle fuel and you look at the wiki for this, there is a fantastic image in there that explains this entire setup process. And that image is basically this with a little bit of modifications, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Now, fair warning, this can sound a bit complicated, but I promise you that I will do my best to make this as easy on the ears as possible. Now, there's just a few things that we need to go over before we get started with that, and that is covering some of the changes that I made during the live stream to basically upgrade our setup here. Now, currently in our setup, we were receiving items at an okay pace, a pretty okay pace. But I needed to upgrade that. So what I did is I took our creative motor, and I am now using that on the sieves. But I had to do a couple of things to get our actual pedestals that are generating resources. Well, I had to set some things up to upgrade those. And let me show you how that works. So you can see that upgraded here, these are running incredibly fast. And some of them may end up having a bit of a problem with these hoppers, which I might actually have to upgrade soon too. Because these are producing resources at a tremendous rate. Now, down here, let me go ahead and show you how I got these pedestals upgraded. These actual modifiers can be upgraded with an upgrader modifier. And this may be a little confusing because it was to me when trying to set this up. Now, we have to keep in mind to upgrade this. This is going to upgrade the base speed of this particular thing. And then we could add speed upgrades to further this. But this will upgrade the speed of the generator itself, not necessarily the speed of the pedestal transferring items or what have you. So to upgrade this, it is kind of interesting. So we'll place this down, a chest, a pedestal on top of the chest, and then we'll have a modification upgrade that goes in here. A little interesting to craft that. You do have to throw paper near like a pig or something, and then right click a tool in order for it to generate some of the resources needed to make that. But after that, we can go ahead and place down two other pedestals, and it can be on the sides. That's fine. But you do have to define the order. So I'm using a pedestals location card. And so you click on this and then click here. Now keep in mind, the order is important. And then we can put that in here. So we put the order here. This is 1 and this is 2. And then if we take a look at the order for which this gets upgraded, this is slot 1, this is slot 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on and so forth. So we have to make sure that that is in the pattern. Now, that means this is 1, so that goes here, the diamonds, and then the obsidian goes here. And then all I have to do is put the upgrade in here, and it should upgrade it, and then it puts it up top. And so we can pull that out. We see now it is speed 10 of 40. And so you do this 3 more times and you will have a max upgraded, a max speed upgraded material generator, which is what I'm using here. And we are going to probably need all of this material generated. 100% going to need that. Now, because I'm noticing all of this right here is actually having a little bit of a problem transferring all the items, I'm going to switch it all to laser nodes. The simple explanation for how this is going to work is really what we're going to end up doing is we are going to have a node that runs on every single one of these, and then we'll have an extract card that is max upgraded, that is just extracting and sending to a single insert card going into this chest. The only thing that is really of note is we need to link all of them together. And so we click and link them together like so. So getting them all linked together, that is simply all we have to do. And there we have it. And there we go. Our setup nice and upgraded. And yes, this is going incredibly fast, and I could probably speed it up even more if I absolutely wanted to. So this, the main goal and the main reason behind all of this, right, is so that way we have a constant supply of fluorite, constant supply of uranium, and then we also need a constant supply of, if I can find it, sulfur, which is down here. All of which is going to be used to make fissile fuel. So we definitely needed this upgraded. Now, to keep up with the demand that this is generating, I also ended up setting up an ultimate smelting factory. And then I have that routed here to be able to pull in all of these items. And so the ultimate smelting factory takes all of the stuff that this is generating and puts it into here. I think, honestly, it would be better actually switching this instead of using the logistical transporters to use laser AO again. Laser AO is just so powerful. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get back into this. So I'm going to do my best to try and explain what all of this setup right here does. Of course, the main goal is to produce fissile fuel. Fissile fuel is actually what we are going to be using to power our fission reactor. So this gets pumped in, and then that will start to get processed and generate, well, it generates steam in reality, and then also generates a byproduct. It'll generate a waste product that we then process and turn into, well, even further waste, basically. Now, the machines that we have going here, we're going to need a few things. Pressurized reaction chamber. We're going to need one of those. Chemical oxidizer, we're going to need 2. Chemical infuser, we'll need 3. A rotary condensator, 1. Chemical dissolution chamber, we're going to need 1. And an enrichment chamber, we're going to need 1 of as well. And then, of course, an isotropic centrifuge. And then that is this machine right here. So in the order, we have, if you place them facing this direction, we have an enrichment chamber. Now, on this enrichment chamber, we are sending uranium ingots. That is then being turned into yellow cake uranium. I am sending this, the raw uranium, so that's why you see a furnace here. And that is just being sent with an exporter. Of course, we have our cross-dimensional running here and running through the wall. So that is the enrichment chamber. Next to that is a chemical oxidizer. And then next to that is a chemical infuser. And this is where everything is going to sort of be processed and put together. So these are making a chemical that is going into this right here. You can see uranium oxide. And then all of these machines right here are adding up to get into this machine, which then fills this side, right? And makes hydrofluoric acid. So this whole section is making hydrofluoric acid, whereas this section is literally just making uranium oxide. So when you break it down into parts, it's actually quite simple to understand. Now over here, if I didn't finish, actually, I should probably go back. This is a chemical dissolution chamber, and then of course your chemical infuser. Right here is the crusher. Now I have a crusher here because I'm sending it sulfur. The sulfur then gets crushed into powder and then sent over to the chemical oxidizer. Once all these machines are upgraded, this will run a lot more smoothly. Right here's the chemical oxidizer next to that. Then we have a chemical infuser, another chemical infuser, and then we have a rotary condensator. And then on the back, we have a electrolytic separator, which is being supplied with water, and it's just making oxygen simply for the chemical infuser here. And that is just sending it directly in, no pipe needed. All right, so to explain how these are all set up. Now, I'm going to do my best. In the item config, you really just need to make sure that you know that everything is using items and or gases. These are all gas related. So the only config menus you need to worry about are going to be the item config if you're sending an item to something, and you're going to have to worry about the gas config. For example, this has a gas config. So inside the gas config, it's best to just, before you even turn this thing on, make sure you clear all sides and just make sure everything's outputting. So the way you want it outputting is you want this machine to go to this machine to send the items to this machine to send it to this machine, and then over on this side, we need this machine to send it to this machine. Then this machine is going to output, I have it set to the top, to send its gas, which is sulfuric acid, over to the chemical dissolution chamber. And then this is accepting from the top, and then it's sending what it produces and accepts items from the right, which we have going here. This is then going to make hydrofluoric acid. And then we need to send that to this machine, and where it was over here, we're just taking the enrichment chamber, sending that to the chemical oxidizer, and then the chemical oxidizer is going to the chemical infuser. And then that is going to simply put all of this into the isotropic centrifuge. So I hope all of that explained within 4 minutes was enough. My goodness, this is just how you set up fizzle fuel. And I think setting up multiples of these would be a good idea. So after that fun explanation, I'm getting some power set up. We are going to need way more power, I think, to be able to get all of these machines set up and running at full speed. So to do that, I have some gas burning generators set up. We're going to be setting up 3 more gas burning generators, and they're all going to go into this room. So right here is going to be one's going to be here and here. And this is probably also where we're going to get our plastic production set up. Because we are also going to need to set up plastic before long, so we can make that SPS, I believe it's called, which is how we're going to make antimatter. And that's going to require ethylene. Thankfully, we're going to be generating quite a bit of ethylene, and probably too much ethylene. But I do want to get some generators going here. So I have everything set up, and well, we've already done this before, so let's just skip to the good part. And bam, all of these are now set up. Everything has power. We just need to get the ingredients put into here. I am using the wireless power from the energy nodes from Cyclic. Absolutely beautiful mod. So absolutely, like, hardly any cables. The only cables we have, of course, is our importer that's going from our pressurized. All of the stuff is configured because I used the cards to be able to copy the stuff from Mekanism. So I just set up 3 configuration cards and was easily able to paste all the configuration. So the only thing we need is moss, and so we just put moss in this. That will get started, and moss in this one, and this is ready to go. This is ready to rock and roll, I think. Now this should already be configured, but I do have to get the water piped into these, and that's about it. And now we have all of them up and running. Very, very cool. Now, some of you guys may have looked a little bit into this pack and have seen that there are actually radioactive bees. And of course, I have looked at them as well, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. These honeycombs produce nuclear waste, but to be able to get to this point to make these bees, well, these bees require dying to radiation. And in order for them to work, they need radiation in order to actually function and to produce the combs, which means we need to irradiate an entire area in order to do that. That sounds quite horrifying, honestly. And you would still need a fission reactor or something to generate this anyways. So you still have to set up the infrastructure when we might as well just keep it. But it is good to keep in mind in case we do have a spill. Maybe these things can clean up the spill faster than just letting it decay on its own. So since I already have all of the ethylene generated, I've got my machine set up to actually make the HDPE sheets, which we are going to need later on. And so we can go ahead and get the pellets made up. I already have substrate that has just been generating over time. I have plenty of it. We already have ethylene, which we need to convert into liquid ethylene. And we already are producing oxygen, which is just getting dumped. So what we can do is we can hook this in, and this is going to send oxygen to our machine. I have it pretty much already configured, and so you can see the oxygen is going in now. And so all the residual will get built up. And what we can do is we can set this to dump excess, so we keep these machines constantly running and constantly producing this as well. And then let's tap in to some extra ethylene. So any of the extra ethylene will be produced here as well. There we go. And now this right here, the rotary, needs to take in ethylene and convert it. So I believe we have to switch this. Actually, I'm not quite sure, and I hope I didn't mess all this up. Both of these sides should work. Oh, we haven't set up the power yet. So let's go ahead and set up the power. I think it is already set up to the mode that it needs to. So with the GPS and all this buzzing sound around us, let's store this machine and this machine, which is going to all need power. I think I have just enough slots. Yeah, more than enough. So there we go. So this is now converting this into liquid ethylene, and that should automatically get pumped. So this will be under the liquids tab because we're now turning this to a fluid. And so on the face, we need to make sure this is outputting and auto ejecting. And there it goes. So now we have liquid ethylene and oxygen, but now we need to get the substrate automatically exporting into the bottom. And now it's going in, and that is producing the HDPE pellets. Now we could use an enrichment chamber to make this, but I think we could easily just craft it as well. And we can just craft it as needed. I think that's going to be a good solution instead of adding another machine and always have that going. So it just gives us more options because these are actually used for rods and stuff like that. All right, so the only other thing left to do to get it fully automated is to hook up an importer to the front, and that is going to automatically pull out the pellets. And I think I don't think it generates any extra stuff. I put a tank here because I didn't remember if it produced extra ethylene or not as a byproduct, but it does seem like it is running just fine. So now I can cap this off. And by the way, if we are going to do this, let's get some sand, moon sand, and a nugget. And we can actually make this look like it's just a hole in the ground. This just is icing on the cake, right? So we'll put this here, that right there, and then we'll hook the importer back up. And as you can see, nice and clean. And then I just need to put sand on the rest of this. So now let's dive into the meat and potatoes of the fission reactor itself. So setting up the fission reactor, I'm going to place it over here, and then this is where our supercritical phase shifter is going to go, where we get to, well, whenever we get to that point. But right now we have to work on the fission reactor. And so I've kind of marked out where a 7x7 would fit. This to this block is 7 blocks, and the SPS is also 7 blocks. So let's make a 7x7 reactor, which is a 5x5 on the inside. So now when setting this up, I am doing a 7x7x8, which may seem like a weird number, but we need 64 of these assemblies by basically placing them down in this sort of pattern. I think I need 64. I could be a little bit off. I thought I only had 13. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. Yeah, so I do need exactly what I have, which means I need 13 control rod assemblies. So we have the fission rod assemblies. These all go like this, and I could probably use a wand, a builder's wand for this. And we'll go ahead and get those stacked up until we run out, and which we've just done that. These need to go on the top, but not the actual top. So if you're familiar with like bigger reactors and things like that, those mods, that's not how this actually functions. And then the top, we just cap off, just like this. And then the outside, I'm going to use structural glass. So I have structural glass that has been producing, and we are going to use that to sort of fill in at least this part right here. And so I can go ahead and get that all filled in and looking nice and glassy. Now, I actually thought that structural glass was the way that we were supposed to do this, but no, reactor glass is what we need, not structural glass, which is this material. So definitely use the reactor glass. Now, as far as reactor ports go, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to have this up here be our input for our actual fuel. And then down here is going to be the output for our waste that we're going to be converting. To get that switched to waste, we just simply crouch and right click, and that will get that done. Over here is going to be water, and we can set that to input only as it's already set up. And then over here, I'm actually going to set this up to be output coolant. which is going to get trashed. So we're almost ready to go. As soon as we place this in and we see all of the redstone particles, we have a completed reactor. Now, the reactor on its own doesn't have any failsafe, so we have to add them. These are called the logic adapters. And by default, there's 4 different events that can trigger. So high temperature, excess waste, damage, critical, and insufficient fuel. And so I have 1 for each, and they emit a redstone signal when one of those events happen. Now, the interesting part is that the activation of the reactor, it activates when it receives a power, which is the exact opposite of what we actually want, which means we're going to have to invert this redstone signal. So to invert the redstone signal that these give us, we are going to use this, which is kind of an interesting little thing, an inverted redstone relay, which is the exact thing that we need. So by default, it sends a redstone signal, right? And I'm using a lamp here because for some reason, the redstone stuff from the pin from the mod itself does not seem to work on this reactor glass. I'm assuming it is because it's glass, and that's why. Now, anyways, we need to hook up some redstone links. So to kind of make this nice and flat, I'm going to hook up some redstone links here. And then we are going to set the filter so that way they're all linked to the same channel. And with them linked to the same channel and the main one flipped to a receive mode, we should now be receiving a redstone signal from this one, right? Because this event has triggered. This is insufficient fuel, and we do not have any fuel in here. As you can see right here, no coolant or no fuel. And because of that, there's nothing to burn, and thus it's emitting a redstone signal. And that is shutting the reactor off. So you can see right here, I cannot hit the scram button to shut the reactor off because it's already off. Now, if I was to disable this, you can see that then turns the reactor on. So with none of them active, the reactor will run. So let me set this back to insufficient fuel and we're ready to go. Now I have tried some other things to hook to this, and a lamp seems to be the best. I wish it was honestly flatter, but that's completely fine. This actually all works. Now, something that would kind of be nice to add once we get this up and running is this. So that way, when these activate, it'll actually set off a warning. And I think that's a pretty good thing to have. But for right now, I think I should probably get rid of this until later. So, but later I can also put that right there, and that will activate and let me know if the machine ever does shut down. So let's get fuel into this. That's kind of an important part, right? We have all of this fizzle fuel. So let's go ahead and get it into this machine. Now to get the actual fizzle fuel that we have being produced over here, and I plan on producing in multiple stations as well. I plan on doing, maybe filling up the whole area, doing one here, here, and over here. So if I'm going to have that, I want to actually use this. This is the quantum entangle porter. It's not super difficult to make. Also is a chunk loader in itself if you absolutely wanted to use one of these. But what it can do is we can actually send gases and stuff cross-dimensionally. Or not, I think it works cross-dimensionally, but it also will allow us to send things wirelessly. So over here, I'm going to set this one up here. And what we need to do is set our channel. So on this one, I'm going to set this to, actually, what are we doing? This will just be fizzle. So fizzle fuel, and we go ahead and we create that channel. Now what this is doing is this is actually filling up its internal buffer with fizzle fuel, and then over here we can then select that channel from this menu and hit set, and now this has fizzle fuel, and we should be able to now take a mechanism pipe and we can hook this up, and this is our import, and then we should be able to pull said fuel out of here and send it in to our reactor. Now let's just make sure that this is filling up. So I placed it like this, so I need to make sure that the configuration is set up on the sides. So on gases, output, we need to make the output here set up. And there we go. So now I do need to turn this off for right now. I am overriding all of the other settings because it does have fuel, but we haven't set anything up yet, any parameters. We haven't given it any water, so this would definitely overheat and blow up. So be careful with that. Don't just go ahead and do that. So with that in mind, we have now we're able to send this over. let's figure out how to send water in here and also make sure we send enough. Now, after doing some testing, trying to figure out what is the fastest method for filling this up with water, well, integrated dynamics is the true winner here. So all we have to do is place down an interface on the actual sink and then an exporter up against the actual reactor port. Connect it, and then this is where we get into transferring some fluids. So we open this grid up. We're going to be using export all fluids, and inside here we can set the transfer rate. And I mean, just add a couple of zeros here, and that should work out just fine. So now, once we put the variable card in there, this is now sending a lot of water very, very quickly. And I couldn't find anything that could even compete with this cable. And then finally, we need to figure this out. So we need to get the steam out of here, and I want to trash said steam. So we need to get the steam out, and I'm going to put that into an ultimate trash can. Normally you'd put this into a turbine, but in this case, we're not really looking to generate power from this reactor, just all of the waste that it generates, which kind of seems odd. Now, this setup is the moment of truth. So what I have is a pressurized reaction chamber here and here. We need to make two different things: polonium pellets and plutonium pellets and polonium pellets. These both require their own amount of stuff, but they both require fluorite and they both require water in order to be produced. So one requires polonium, one requires plutonium, or sorry, polonium and plutonium. Now, one is made in the solar neutron activator, which needs the sun, and this one needs power, which we've already messed around with the isotropic centrifuge. So to set this up, I have pressurized tubes, connected to the back of them, and we should be able to connect this up to here without any problems. Now, the scary part is, like, there's going to be waste in here, and if any of these pipes get broken, then you're going to spill waste everywhere, and we don't want that to happen, right? Now, we want to make sure all these machines are connected and are actually functioning. So let's go ahead and get our water piped to the machines. And we're going to have to make sure on this particular machine that we have our gases going in the proper direction. So underneath the gases section, which I'm under, I need gas to fill from the back, and I want it to output on this side. So for this machine, fill in the back and then output. There shouldn't actually be an output. There should be, oh, actually nuclear waste is going to output from the front. So be wary with these, be wary. Underneath the gases on this one, we will accept input in the back, and we're going to output the waste on the front. So this is going to give us unspent nuclear waste, which is a horrifying thing. But before we fully turn everything on, we want to make sure we get those under control too. And for that, we are going to need barrels. It's very special barrels, actually, waste barrels. So let me get several of these crafted up. Now, to handle all of our unspent nuclear waste, I'm placing all of these cables down a line of waste barrels. These will disperse and slowly decay all of the waste that this is going to be producing. So to get that waste, I'm going to go ahead and just hook that directly in, like so, and then make sure these are set to pull that spent nuclear waste out. And that should hopefully get this started. So all we have to do now is activate our reactor, which is going to be pretty loud, and we should start noticing some stuff build up. Now, in this will only work during the day, and I'm really hoping that it actually works in this dimension. I would say that it should work in this dimension. If it doesn't, well, we have trouble on our hands. This, on the other hand, I guess when this fills up, it is going to start sending it over here because there's no distribution that is happening here. Another useful thing that we could potentially do is, I guess we could maybe have two exports, one sending to this and the other sending to the other. Now, because this is empty, we shouldn't encounter any sort of reaction happening. So let's go ahead and do that. So with all that done, now the fun part starts to take place. So I have that all filtered up in the back here. Both of them are running. And I'm not noticing an increase. It does seem like it still prioritizes one over the other. Thankfully, we can shut off one of these machines if need be, but we can't shut off the ports, I guess, without changing it. But we should be able to increase our production here, because at the moment we're not really burning up our fuel. We're still gaining fuel. So the way we increase that is by going into here and start fiddling with the numbers. So by default, let's go ahead and try a burn rate of 5 millibuckets, because it was doing 0.01. And we'll notice right away if this is too much. So we'll start to notice our water. If our water decreases, then we know it's too much. And we should also keep an eye out on making sure steam doesn't build up and so on and so forth. But it doesn't even seem like this is high. Our temperature is not really raising up, and it doesn't seem like we're losing fissile fuel on our production. We're still producing more than we're actually losing, from it looks like. Oh, actually, no, we are now actually losing. So because we are losing a little bit, what we should do is we should probably just go ahead and max upgrade all these machines. That is one thing I have yet to do. So it seems now at this point, with all of this upgraded and this upgraded to a factory to get it producing a little bit faster, that about a burn rate of 20 is about all we can really get out of a single one. Now we could bump this up to 40 and run 40 off of this easily as well, without the temperature going up too high. The water is not even going to be an issue. But this over here now seems to be running pretty well. And honestly, we should have the polonium pellets already. I guarantee we already have the polonium pellets needed in order to actually complete that final overpowered section. And this is actually kind of crazy. So let's go ahead and submit those. And then last but not least, all we need is a supreme machine frame, and we get a creative controller that's infinite power for our refined storage system, which is kind of ridiculous. Industrial foregoing. Let's go ahead and grab our supreme machine frame, which we have as well, and submit that. We also get all these creative element containers that are really going to help us later on. I'm not going to accept these things just yet, as there's still more work to be done. Now, what are these actually used for, these polonium pellets? Well, they're used for the SPS casing, in which we are going to need several of in order to actually make the machine, the SPS actual machine for making all of the components that we're going to be using later on to make, well, what is it? Antimatter. That's right, antimatter. And then, well, we actually need polonium pellets. So to get those polonium pellets, we are going to have to eventually let this fully burn out what is in here, which is kind of a lot. And, well, I think at this point, I probably have enough of that. I'm going to shut this off for right now. Try to get this to burn through all of this. And let's actually, I'll just hook up some speed upgrades into this. So after getting everything upgraded, and also I had to break another tinted glass, I was like, why is this not working when it's daytime on this planet? And now it's working. So we can see that is filling up, and that should start producing some of the other ingredients that we need, right? It should start producing the polonium pellets. Very, very cool. And guys, with that, I am going to have to say today was a pretty productive day. We got a lot of stuff with Mekanism going. This is a very large, time-consuming project that takes a lot of tedious effort to get this to not blow up. So thankfully, it should be right where it needs to be to not do that. And everything's looking really good. We have everything going, so we should be able to leave it up and running now and kind of leave it and forget about it, and it's just going to hopefully work. I will keep an eye out on our waste and make sure we're not, you know, producing too much waste. If so, I do need to add more barrels so that way it can disperse it all, but I think 64 might be enough. But guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did enjoy today's video, be sure to click that subscribe button, as these videos do take a lot of time and effort to not only plan out, but also put into action. And I really do appreciate it. I love showcasing stuff like this, and it means a lot to me if you guys would subscribe and also give this video a huge thumbs up. Also, comment down below, all of you guys Mekanism nerds, let me know if I did anything wrong and if there's something that you would do better. That way I can apply it to setup when I do it in the future. So guys, thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Of course, it is now time to thank the supporter of today's video. And that huge thanks, my friends, is going to go to Blake Jen over on YouTube, becoming a YouTube member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Guys, I appreciate you guys so much, and I thank you individually for supporting the channel and helping put out more content just like this. Thank you guys so much for watching. Of course, I'll see you in the next one, and as always, yet again, thanks for watching. All right. I have a really good one for you this time. What did the sign say on the abandoned nuclear reactor? Gone fission. That's such a dad joke.